9 years in the Ministry of Education headquarters. Before this, I was in the secondary school teaching for 15 years, working on some really exciting projects to enhance our students' learning experiences. So the title has this word, joyful teaching. What does joyful teaching or teaching content in enjoyable ways really mean? This is something that I wanted to think about, because when I try to engage my students, not all my students are engaged or motivated to learn. And I can think about the issue being at the student end, or I can think of the issue being at my end as a teacher. Am I delivering or presenting the content in joyful ways? So let me share with you a visual representation that my colleagues and I developed. If you look on the screen over here, you see a stick man over here. These are us, the teachers. And over here on the right, you see a stickman of three stickmen. These are the students. And one of the things that we do on almost a daily basis is to teach content to our students. And when we teach content to our students, we also bear in mind how students need to demonstrate their learning. If we can split this visual representation into two parts, you have the left portion, which is the teacher teaching content. How are we teaching the content? And on the right portion, where you have students demonstrating their learning, demonstrating their creativity, it can be in many ways. It can be through quizzes, escape rooms, science projects, many ways. And when I ask teachers, show me an enjoyable lesson, including my own team, we find that a lot of enjoyable lessons are very much at students demonstrating their learning or showing their creativity over here. Let me share with you an example of a Kahoot. Teachers came up with Kahoot quiz, and this is on the basis that students already know how to answer math and science. So they demonstrate their understanding of math and science. This is good. And also for the application of content in projects where they demonstrate their creativity in STEAM or STEM, this is good. But we go back to the basics. How did the teacher present maths or present science to the students in the very first place? So instead of just looking at this right portion, we want to look at the left portion, where we as teachers, how do we present the content? If we present the content in an enjoyable way, then I think our students will be excited. We as humans, we also become excited when content is presented in enjoyable ways. But if the teacher is presenting content in boring ways, then it influences the student enthusiasm. If somebody is presenting content to me in a boring way, maybe I will not be excited. Maybe I will be disengaged. So for the purpose of this sharing, we want to focus on how teachers are presenting content. Let me start by sharing an example of a teacher in a secondary school teaching 14-year-old students in mathematics. This teacher went to get oranges from the supermarket, and she told the students, can you cut the orange and draw 4 circles based on the diameter of the orange, and told the students to peel the skin of the orange and distribute the skin evenly over the 4 circles. So you can see here students doing the work. They are grouped in trees, and they cover as many circles completely with small pieces of orange peels without overlapping. What they have at the end of maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes is something that looks like this. And the teacher now asks the students, recall the formula for area of a circle. And the students say, oh, the area of a circle is pi r squared. So you see here, there are 4 of pi r squared. And this is when the teacher says, this 4 of pi r squared is equivalent to the surface area of a sphere. And this is how you get 4 pi r squared. When the teacher is presenting mathematics in this way, the students go along the line of, I enjoy learning surface area of a sphere because my mathematics teacher is teaching this content in enjoyable ways. If I have mathematics teachers like this, I will also be excited about learning mathematics. Note that this is not about students' demonstration of learning, but this is how a teacher is presenting the content to spark student enthusiasm and motivation in learning. So again, we see that using appealing context to present content positively influences student enthusiasm in learning. This was published in a mathematics teacher journal in 2011. And what we want to highlight is that this is the left portion of the representation where teachers are presenting the content, not about students demonstrating. This is about teacher creativity. In my school, we think about the students at the heart of what we do. And for some of us, presenting or teaching this content in joyful ways to bring about the joy of learning is a good to have. Some teachers may say, I will do this if I have the time. But if I don't have the time, I will teach in the normal way, in the traditional way. But for me and many teachers in my school, it became a necessity. Some of my students were telling me the way I'm teaching is boring. And sometimes some of them are telling me that they do not know the purpose of why they are learning some things in mathematics or in science. So not meeting up to these learning needs let them being academically unmotivated in learning. And I ask myself, if my students are telling me my lesson is boring or they don't know why are they learning about mathematics, I know as a teacher, I know when they grow up is to build the critical thinking and problem solving. But for the student, they are wondering, why are we learning about this formula? Or why are we learning about some of the things? And why is learning not being happy? It's so boring. So what the teachers and we came together and we thought about professionally developing ourselves to meet the needs in areas related to motivation and engagement in learning. We wanted to see at the teacher side, can we be creative in presenting the content that we have to teach? So 10 years ago, you see my colleagues and myself, my friends in school, we came together, and the purpose of me showing you this photograph is to show you that these are teachers teaching different subjects, not just mathematics or science, but different subjects coming together to learn about how do we present our content in English language, in mathematics language, mathematics in science, in many other subjects. How do we teach the content that we have to teach so that our students become excited and they want to come to school to learn? So we have to think about this from the teacher creativity angle. And one of the things we ask ourselves, have we been expecting our students to conform or comply to the way we present content, which may be boring? Maybe I have students who are very nice to me because when I teach in boring ways, they are still quiet, they are still listening to me, but in their hearts, they know this is not exciting. They will just study for the exam, but not for life, not because they love learning, but because they just want to pass the exam. If we look at the model by Deci and Ryan on motivation, the motivation continuum, self-determination continuum, we see that compliance is right at the bottom of extrinsic motivation. What we want to do is to instill enjoyment and interest in our students. So we want them to want to learn and not just have to learn. So we want to shift. I want the students to come to school not because they have to study, but we want them to want to study because the way the teachers are teaching is exciting. And this in Singapore, it is part of our teachers' pledge to pass on that love of learning. So allow me to share with you another example where in science, my colleagues and myself came together and we thought, can we use a simple maker activity to teach content, to promote interest in STEM through the way we are teaching science? So we used a tea strainer for making tea and an aluminum plate. We told the students to cut this aluminum plate and put some sugar inside and attach it to a motor. All this is done within maybe 30 minutes or so, very fast. And then we told the students to learn about the Bunsen burner. And after they learn about the Bunsen burner, we will make something exciting. Let's watch a video over here.
Auntie, milk. You know what's the problem or not? Your flame is luminous, huh? Leave it. Yeah, turn on the open the collar. Correct. Some more. Don't be scared. Very good. Some more. Okay. Okay, go. Turn on. Bring lower. Yeah, it's closer. Okay, pick up. Turn off the. Yeah. Okay. Remove. Amelia, take it up. Okay. Give it to everybody. Okay. Give it to Madam Zubaida also.
This is a very old video. This video was taken in 2009, about 16 years ago. And the students made this. I happened to take the video. And what I wanted to share is that this is about our students learning because of the way the teachers are teaching. This is not about learning this content in a boring way, but this is about how teachers are teaching this content through a project that is appealing. This is not about a hands-on and minds-on project, but this is also about a hearts-on project. We start to see that when we have exciting projects, when we engage the affective domain, the heart region, and the cognitive function, what happens is that it translates to on-task behavior. The students who may not be engaged or maybe even naughty, when we do this, we start to see them being very focused because their behavioral engagement comes in because we are able to touch their hearts, the emotional connection to the content. Of course, we want our students to also, after learning this, to demonstrate their understanding in written forms. So for this, we have to draw the cotton candy machine into their paper so that when they see it, they can build up their confidence. This is something that they can identify and relate to. If they need more scaffolding, we provide them with more scaffolding. You can see over here more hints over here. I did a research 2 years ago with teachers making toys. And this is at our Science of Learning in Education Center. These are teachers from different schools in Singapore and different levels. Some are primary school, some are secondary school. They come together and they make toys. You can see them holding their solar cars. And some of these teachers, we put in a device. It looks like a watch. It is actually a physiological sensor that are found in the smartwatch technology. It it tracks the sweat conductance. When we are excited, we may not see sweat, but actually there's sweat in the palm. And what happens is that this device is able to capture this sweat conductance, and it is an indicator of emotional arousal, excitement. So some of these teachers have this sensor on their palms. It looks like a watch. And then we do many activities, which are hands-on activities, making toys. And the university researchers are learning together. Some of these activities are very fun. Some are hands-on, but maybe not so fun. So what I'm about to show you is the graph that comes up from the sensors. It is not from the actual readings that I did, but this is something that was done before. And I have two hypotheses for this. When teachers are doing exciting projects themselves, you see that the arousal level is very high and they get excited, they become very focused. Same with students, I think. But when teachers are doing hands-on activities, not so exciting, not fun, it is still engaged, but you can see it at a lower arousal level because it is not so fun. So the first hypothesis I have is that when we think about engaging our students by using exciting activities, it may not even be hands-on, but it has to be hearts-on to evoke the emotions and excitement. The second hypothesis I have is that there is no difference in arousal level across profiles. It cannot be a student who is high ability and another student who may need more support. I feel that the arousal level will be the same. All the children value an enjoyable learning experience. They all want to do the cotton candy together. So there is really no difference about the choice of projects for different profiles of students. Rather, I must think about how do I prioritize the learning experiences of my students when I'm designing out my teaching. The video that you have seen earlier is an old video. It was done in 2009. That was 16 years ago. Last year, some of these children are 27 years old, 28 years old. They got married, and some are married. They invite me to their wedding. And when I go to the function, some of them who are married, they can tell their husbands what was the experience of learning science 15 years ago. They still remember it. They don't forget. And sometimes when I think that I teach just for the exam, my student will pass, but they will forget how did they learn the content. But when it's exciting, they will remember the content. There is a saying in the 1800s, what we learn with pleasure, we never forget. This is something I always think about for myself. If I want my students to enjoy and develop the love of learning and to remember learning experiences, how do I even teach the content in the first place? So if we look at the two examples that we have seen, the first priority is not about teaching the content, but it is about thinking about what will evoke joyful emotions from my students. And this can come about through elements of novelty, multi-sensory stimulus, and appropriateness. Once I see a context that will excite and enthuse my students, I think about how can I use this context to teach content that I have to teach. For example, melting, decomposition in science, or skills in using the Bunsen burner, or the surface area of a sphere. This has to do with the teacher creativity, not just about the student creativity. This is on the teacher side. How are we as teachers become creative to teach the content? And then we want to get the students to relate with the experiences. So for example, setting questions in the science paper related to the experience of making the candy floss kit. I also want to take into consideration that I have my lesson, each lesson is about 1 hour. Can I do all this in 1 hour? And can I do all this with simple materials, not expensive, the feasibility? So we see the letters RAP here. I am thinking first it is the A, appeal, and then is the R, and then it is the P. We have been trying it out in my school 20 years ago, and then slowly we find that many teachers across subjects, teaching physical education, teaching art, teaching music, all the teachers are able to use this RAP guideline to ensure that there is both joy and rigor in teaching the content. So this RAP guideline has been useful for teachers in my school, and then we started to share it with other schools in Singapore, and many teachers are using it to develop joyful teaching ideas, to help teachers to come up with creative ideas. The first step is to think about what are the appealing contexts in the real world and look at them as opportunities for teaching and learning. When I see this toy, when I see this video clip, when I see this magic trick, I don't think of it just as entertainment tools, but I think of it, can I use this as teaching tools? This is where the teachers come up with creative ideas to emotionally connect students to the content. We see the relevant to the learning objectives in the syllabus and personal experiences provided by the teacher. So we can use these toys, this video clip, this magic trick to teach content in science, languages, mathematics, etc. But it is done during the teaching of maths and science, not at some STEM program, but in our classroom, in English lesson, in maths lesson, because these are all done within maybe 30 minutes, within 40 minutes, within 5 minutes. So many of us come together as teachers and we start to think that this is not about my students demonstrating their understanding of content in enjoyable ways, such as their reports or science projects or STEM projects. This is about me as a teacher. How do I present the content in my subject in creative and enjoyable ways? I will share now about how the story of from my school and beyond my school. So from my team, we share it within my school and then beyond the school to friends in Singapore. We have shared the RAP guideline to many of our friends in Singapore, and we can see many teaching ideas that are coming out from our schools. So for example, you see here a teacher dressing up as a police inspector to talk about English literature. This is different from getting children to dress up. This is about the teacher coming in and excite the students because the teacher takes the effort to dress in. You can see here on the right, on the top right, a teacher using a fun coloring magic book to teach the students. And you can see how the students become so excited. They look at the teacher using magic to teach English. That is so exciting. You can see on the bottom left how a teacher uses simple toys to excite students in learning about Chinese language. Or on the right, how a teacher gets her students to make simple kites in the teaching of Malay language. So you can see each one of them think about the RAP guideline in designing their teaching. And they have drawn over the model where they're focusing on the presentation of content. One school where the teacher leaders and the principal wanted everyone in their school, all the 80 teachers in the school, to think about joyful teaching for the entire school. So they, on their Padlet, they group by department: English department, mathematics, science department, Chinese language, Malay language, Tamil language. Every department comes up with a joyful teaching idea, how to present. So here is one example where teachers come together and think about how do we present content in mathematics to our students in primary 4. These are about 10-year-old children. So they have to remember that this is not about students demonstrating their mathematics. This is how do teachers present. If the teachers present in a boring way, the students may not be excited about learning. But how do we present it in a joyful way? This took many months for teachers to think about creative ideas, to look at the journals, to look at videos, to discuss and bounce off ideas at conferences, seminars, and in the schools, to think about how do we use toys to teach the content. At the end of the year, Staff Learning Festival, every department was sharing about how they teach content in joyful ways. So today we are starting to see more and more schools thinking about the creativity of teachers to come up with joyful teaching ideas. It was a very exciting period. This was exactly 1 year ago, 22nd November 2024, where teachers did this with each other to think about valuing students' learning experiences. But this is not about students demonstrating creativity. This is about teachers demonstrating creativity in teaching the content. This, I find, has not been discussed a lot in the literature. There's a lot of discussion on student creativity, but how are we as teachers modeling how to become creative for our students? Allow me to share now some developments in the school that I was in, and we talk about how these projects or teaching methods, how teachers can come together across subjects to promote not just enjoyment, but also purpose in learning, interdisciplinary teacher collaboration. So earlier I have shared with you that we have done the cotton candy project in science lessons. My friend and colleague who teaches English in the school, he told me why every time in science lesson the children become very excited, but in English lesson he also wants them to be excited. So we team up together. In English lesson now, after the science lesson, the students learn about cotton candy. This is my friend, the teacher teaching English, and he set a comprehension passage based on the cotton candy. So now when the children finish science lesson on cotton candy, they go to the English lesson, it is still on the cotton candy floor. So what happens is that the students know that the science teacher and English teacher have come together to make it purposeful. And in the computer lessons, the teachers taught graphic skills in word processing to design an instruction sheet. This is not just about an interdisciplinary teacher collaboration, but also that the project must first be exciting for the children. If this project is not exciting, we think that even when we come together as teachers, the students' motivation is not going to be there. And in our design and technology lessons, the students learn about making different types of machines to sell their cotton candy in the school's fun carnival. So these are skills, maker skills they learn in design and technology, and come up with different creative designs. For example, they instead of Bunsen burner, this group of students use a candle, and they show where they get their ideas from, which books, the idea conceptualization. And one student came up with a very portable design. You're able to just press a button and the candy comes out over here. And this is where he puts in a battery. So a very simple design, but it's possible. The creativity comes up from the students, but it also shows about how the teachers of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics come together to capitalize on a project to teach the content. Again, this is not an applied STEM project. This is in English lessons, in technology lessons, in engineering lessons, in science lessons, regular lessons, but how teachers come together to present this content. In another project, this was a very long time ago, in 2005, 20 years ago, I went to a school where the children were, there were many children who were mentally disabled, and the teachers were teaching these children fairy tales. The children are 4 years old to 6 years old. They are preschool children. The teachers were using picture cards and puppets. But my students who are secondary to 14-year-old children and 14-year-old students and myself, we saw that the teachers are not able to engage these young 4 to 6-year-old children. So I thought that this becomes an opportunity for me to think about getting my students to design and make toys in support of telling these fairy tale stories. So we grouped together the students using simple materials, very, very simple recycled materials, and to think about how can we build toys to support the fairy tale stories. For example, there is a story about Rapunzel where the hair comes down to pick up the prince. And one of these groups over here used a kitchen towel and put a pulley and Allen key to make the hair come down. Let's look at the video.
Go.
The Rapunzel go down.
Oh, so the magnet is Rapunzel. So paperclip is a
Prince.
As a prince. Yeah. Okay. Then so Rapunzel's hair brings up the.
So what you see here are the students coming up with creative ideas and to think about it. And this was done entirely in science lesson. I thought that, can I talk to my friend who's teaching art to see whether he can help the children with coloring these projects in art lessons. So the art teacher came in to help with these children about how they can color and teaching content in art. I learned something that Rapunzel is blonde and it is not white color hair. So he told the students, can we use a different color? And the students use a highlighter to paint the hair. And when we can look at this tower, we can see that everyone who sees this is able to identify Rapunzel through the color of her hair and the kitchen towel as a tower. Over time, we started to talk to teachers teaching English, teachers teaching computer applications, the technology teachers, the art teachers. Can we come together to use this project to teach content in their lessons? So we see that while this is done in the science lesson, the teachers teaching art also come in. The teachers teaching English also come in. The teachers teaching computer technology also comes in. So when we do this, students find a sense of purpose to learn the art. They find a sense of purpose to learn narration skills in English. They find a sense of purpose to learn graphic skills and presentation slides. So this, we think, is interdisciplinary STEAM at the teacher side, not the student side, but the students are the end users. They see the teachers coming together to make it not just enjoyable, but purposeful. So once the students have done all their toys, we go back to that preschool, and we have been going for 10 years to the different schools and the orphanages. These are children without mothers and fathers. And my students here, the 14-year-old students, when they present the toys to the young children, they excite the young children, arouse curiosity. The young children are wondering, how do they make this mechanism work? But also, importantly, there's a lot of values that have been taught to the students. The values of empathy. When the students do this project, They know who are they inventing it for. These are young children. They learn to understand more about the young children. Some of these young children have special education needs. So they even think, when I use the font size, what type of font size do I use? A sans serif font? Do I use a serif font? Do I use a Times New Roman? Do I use what color are the PowerPoint slides? Most of the PowerPoint slides I use are white color background, because there are some with special needs. When you use a yellow color or red color, they cannot see. So these are learning needs. The other one is respect. We find that when these students, when they go to the young children's schools, we find that the young children give them a lot of respect, and they learn to be humble, and they learn that yes, we may come from very disadvantaged backgrounds, but these children, many don't even have fathers, mothers, some are special needs. They learn to respect a lot more for the children as well as for themselves. They learn about responsibility. They learn that these are simple recycled materials that we have done to make our toys. And what they have learned from that is that we must take care of these materials, because this will make our toy inventions worth for the children. Resourcefulness, as mentioned, this is all 100% recycled materials and upcycling materials. So the students have to be resourceful to think about where we can get these materials. There is no money involved or hardly anything. And resilience, while the toys work at the final instance, along the way, they have a lot of issues and problems with the mechanical or electronics movement. They have to think about how do we overcome it, because we have to present this to our end users, which are the children. All this contributes to the self-worth of the student inventors. They feel good in an area of STEAM. So before coming to high school or secondary school, many of these students of mine were underperforming in their primary school. But when they come here, they start to be happy. You can see that when a science class starts, they want to be the first to come to the science class, because they want to use this project-based learning, which is exciting, to design and make the toys while learning about some concepts related to simple machines. The Early Childhood Agency in Singapore invited the students to present their toys to many preschool educators. So they joined me in co-presenting some of these designs to the teachers. These are many teachers, more than 100 teachers who are teaching in the preschools, but they are learning from these students who in the primary schools did not do well in science, but now are sharing with teachers how you can make science more exciting. Because when they were in primary school, one major reason why they did not do well is because the teachers did not spark interest in the learning of science or STEM. They share with the teachers how they have come up with these ideas for their toy, the creative development of these children. For example, in the story Goldilocks and the Three Bears, the Papa Bear sits on a very hard bed. The baby bear sits on a very soft bed, but the Mama Bear sits on a semi-hard, semi-soft bed. All this, I think, because of the appeal of the fun project, contributed to students' drive and demonstration of inventiveness. If I tell the students to come up with inventive or creative ideas, and if the context is not fun, I don't think I will be able to get my students to come up with interesting ideas. So we have gone in the last 9 years to do parents workshop, to the same thing, but get the parents and the children excited about learning. One of my students who was not coming to school a lot, but when we started doing projects, he turned around. He said that, thank you for teaching us. It's really hard to get a teacher that teaches us using toys. You actually made me happy, even though I was going through a rough time at home. I was never happy, but every time you start teaching us, I just automatically smile. The school counselor, who was a former principal, mentioned that joyful lessons become an escape for students. It has a positive effect on those who are long-term absenteeism. They start coming back to school because as humans, we want to be happy. So if the schools can make children happy in our math, science, technology lessons, art lessons, then naturally the students will come. I thought that after doing all these projects, the people that we want to show these projects to are the parents of these children. So on a Saturday morning, we invited the parents to come to school. This is towards the end of the year. And we share with the parents how their children have come up with so much toy inventions in learning science, English, mathematics. And we show the parents how the development of the project. And we get the students to share with their parents what have they learned through this project. Some of the parents started to cry and think that my children never had this so much fun in learning before. And parents attributed the success of their children to the innovative pedagogy and guidance by the teachers as opposed to the children's academic abilities. It is not about these children being good in their studies or not, but it is because the teachers have made learning experiences joyful for the children. You can see here on the photograph the students showing their father and mother how they make cotton candy. And when the father and mother make the cotton candy, they also become excited about science. And they also tell me if they learn science in a very enjoyable way when they were young, they will be excited about science. So I'm thinking now, why did we not learn science the fun way? Why did we not learn math the fun way? Sure, we can score good grades, we can get A, mathematics and science, but does that mean we love the subject? And the question is, whose job is it to make us love the subject? So we can see some parents being really, really excited. And these students, when they came to me, they were 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, and they did not do well in their primary school. So they were channeled to the school and this particular class where the students are underperforming. And after 4 years, they take an exam. And in this exam, they perform very well. The newspaper came to see how is it that these students are able to do so well, because the expectation was not so high for these students, but yet they become so well. And this is when I share with everyone that instead of getting students to have to learn, we must try to get them to want to learn. And this is a problem sometimes that we have, because this requires teacher creativity. How do we get our children to come to school? Because they love learning through the way the teacher is presenting the content. Sometimes in the book, the way the content is presented across primary school, secondary school, colleges, in the universities as well, it is taught in very boring ways. So why am I surprised if my lecturer is teaching me in a boring way? Why should my lecturer be surprised that I am not motivated in learning? So at the heart of it, it's about teachers who help create a habit to enjoy learning. These students were still underprivileged by the time they took the exams. So there is no difference in their socio-economic status over the 4 years. They are still coming from underprivileged background. But what is the difference is that teachers have made their lessons, not so much the lesson, but their teaching more exciting. And this brought in the love of learning for the students. So as I end my sharing for this sharing, I would like to share with everyone the same message that I share with all educators as I learn from everyone as well. Let's continue to bring the joy of learning through our teaching. The left portion of this visualization, the presentation of it. We have come up with a video of the RAP guideline. If you can scan the QR code, you'll be able to see. I will put this in the chat as well. You can click it and then you can copy and paste it. You'll be able to see the video that talks about this. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll be taking questions from everyone with regards to my sharing. If you need my contact, you can also scan this. This is my contact at MOE. Thank you, everybody. Back to you, Samar.
Thank you, Dr. Nadir, for this enjoyable and session. And now for the questions from the teachers. One of the teachers asked if there's any how we can see all the works from the teachers in your school. Is there a website or something like this we can share it for the teachers?
Yes, let me share some of my experiences based on the development, and perhaps if it's okay with you, I will also look at some of the questions that are on the chat. Okay. The first question by Dr. Noor Al-Kilani: in the light of Singaporean experience, how can teachers balance the demands of high-stake assessment systems with the need to design joyful learning experiences that build students' intrinsic motivation? Thank you very much for this question. This is something that we asked ourselves. Sometimes I am guilty of saying there is a time to study and there is a time to have fun. When I say there is a time to study and there is a time to have fun, I immediately acknowledge there is a disconnect between fun and studying, which means I'm telling my student, when I say there's a time to study and there's a time to have fun, I'm telling my student studying is not fun because you are separating the two. What we want to say, learning sciences, the science of learning tells us that learning is both a cognitive and emotional process. When the fun stops, learning often stops too. That's what Dr. Judy Willis said. So the neuroscience is telling us that it is not just a cognitive process, but emotional process. If we can teach the students in joyful ways, it can go to long-term memory, attention and encoding. I will not be bringing the neuroscience aspect so much, but it is the part about students retaining that knowledge. This video, which I put in the site, it will explain more. Now, when it comes to the high stakes exam over here, I mentioned here getting students from having to learn to wanting to learn. But now at a high stakes exam, they know how to learn. Certainly at any high stakes exam, it is common for us teachers to bring our students to practice the past year papers. That is fine. That is what we want our students to achieve, the performance. But what will get our students to be motivated to that level, to be self-directed, to know how to learn? It starts with the first part about teaching content in enjoyable ways. So with regards to that question, designing joyful teaching is a necessity for me and my team, as well as I think any other students will value an enjoyable learning experience. Now that they want to learn, we facilitate the transfer of learning to know how to learn. The context may not be joyful, but we have enjoyed the gaining of the content in enjoyable ways. It is retained in our long-term memory. Now we transfer the learning into non-joyful context. The problem is, in the first place, if teachers are not even teaching content in joyful ways. So I hope that answers part of your question. The second part, in your view, what are non-negotiable elements in lesson design if we want content to be transformed into meaningful, enjoyable learning with long-term impact? The non-negotiable is the subject disciplinarity. We are not using joyful context as just hooks. These joyful contexts become teaching tools. For example, the orange that you saw earlier, how the teacher has creatively used it to present the content of surface area of the sphere, the disciplinarity remains. In terms of using the cotton candy, we still are teaching about the Bunsen burner. We're teaching about melting of sugar. We're teaching about decomposition. This is non-negotiable. But the way we're going to teach melting, decomposition, and surface area matters. That has to do with contextual knowledge. Okay, I'm just looking at the other question. Thank you very much for all the positive comments. What is the minimum demand of learning from preschool learner to finish the year with? I'm not in preschool, but what I can say is that is the role of any educator right up to the university level to spark interest in students' learning. What is the most common mistake teachers make when they try to make lessons fun? I think it's a lot to do with mindset, because when we grow up as teachers, we may not necessarily experience joyful learning all the time. So the problem with that is that if we think there is only one way to teach, and teaching or learning cannot be so fun because of the way we are being brought up, I think that is, I wouldn't call it a mindset, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but I think it's a mindset issue. What we are trying to do here is to raise that level for our children to have joyful learning experiences. So when they grow up and they become teachers, they remember joyful learning experiences and bring it up to a higher level. So this is about learning experiences which contribute to attitudes towards learning, not so much performance. Okay, what is the most important skill we must develop today to be able to innovate tomorrow, and how to help our students have this skill? I think there are many skills that we need to foster among our students: communication skills, adaptive thinking, critical thinking. There's so many skills, but the question is, how are we fostering these skills to our students? What kind of context? And in this presentation, I hope that the message is about, if we have a joyful context, then it is likely that our students become more invested to want to do things and learn to develop these skills. What to do with a student who is not enthusiastic and who does not respond to activities? That's a wonderful question. And this is where I'm just going to reverse my slide, and I'm going to go to this understanding of universally appealing. So when I did this research, or I'm still doing this research, so if you look at it here, if we do hands-on activities, for example, which are at the bottom level, low arousal levels, students may comply, they may be engaged, but there will be a few students or even one student who still find it boring. What happens is that if we can find joyful context and hit 5 microsiemens, for example, over here, the arousal level becomes high. I use magic, for example, in my classroom. We find that there is no child that is going to not be engaged. So the higher we go, this is what I call towards universal appeal. When we hit universal appeal, or going up at higher arousal levels, what happens is that many students are drawn in. If I show you a cup now, okay, I don't think it is good online, but if I show you, I pour water and then I turn this cup upside down and the water doesn't come out, I think it becomes a novel effect. But do teachers prioritize this? That becomes the problem. So with regards to enthusiasm, I think it is important that teachers look at contexts that are highly appealing, that hits towards universal appeal. Send the student home. How often can we use innovative ideas in a school year? I think the ideal state is, at any time we are presenting a new topic, we should be thinking about how can we present this topic in an enjoyable way. This is an ideal state where we think that teachers should have, because we want our students, while we want our students to become self-directed, the way we present content, even at the university levels, become very important. Thank you very much for all the questions. If there are any more questions, we still have a bit of time. You can just verbalize your question or write it down here.
What is the demand?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nadir. It was a rich and insightful lecture in which every second was invested to the fullest. You immersed us in your experience and allowed us to explore many of your best practices. Hopefully, we can meet you again in person also, not only in online, and we can share experiences and get benefit from your great experience and your education system.
Inshallah. Thank you very much. I'm just leaving one link for everyone to see if you are interested. This will be a reading based on my sharing as well, which we presented in the conference.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Before
Dr.
before you leave, I want to share you the certificate of appreciation for your efforts in this great and fruitful lecture. We will send you this certificate.
Thank you very much. Shukran.
I want to thank you, Dr. Nadir, for this inspiring and valuable session. We truly appreciate your time and insights. And thank you to everyone who joins us today. Your presence made this forum meaningful. We look forward to seeing you again in future events. Thank you, Dr. Nadir.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Assalamu alaikum,
much.
everyone. Thank you.
عليكم.
Thank you. Yeah.
السلام عليكم.
خلاص.
Do you leave? شكرا
شكراً.
لكم جميعا، شكرا لجميع الحضور، شكرا لك
يعطيكم
ست
العافية،
سمر.
محاضرة رائعة جدا.
يعطيكم العافية جميعا، شكرا.
إن شاء الله تستمروا معنا في منتدى الابتكار اللي بتديره ست سمر نزال، وإن شاء الله دائما نكون عند حسن ظنكم، ويكون في ما بعد ذلك. يعني إن شاء الله في نقطة مهمة جدا أثارها اللي هي قضية interdisciplinary approach in teaching and enjoyable teaching and learning. وهذا الشيء الجمعية يعني سعيدة جدا بأنها خلينا نقول تتبنى هذه النهج، ومن خلال مشروعها الستيم اون ستيج. وإن شاء الله تكونوا كلكم، يعني إذا كان في عندكم أي مبادرات أو أي رغبة في الانضمام إلى هذا الفريق وإلى مسابقات الممارسات التعليمية الفضلة اللي بتعكس عمل هذا النهج، وإن شاء الله إنه يكونوا كمان في سنغافورة يعني من الناس اللي رح يتعاونوا معنا في هذا المشروع الكبير. يعطيكم العافية، شكرا لك ست سمر. إذا في عندكم أي ملاحظات، وإذا في ست سمر عندها أي شيء، وإذا حدا فيكم حابب إنه يتكلم أو يقترح مقترح، الجروب إن شاء الله تبقى قائمة لمن رغب في أن يستمر في هذا المنتدى، بنسميها منتدى ابتكار، ونستقبل طروحاتكم وأفكاركم والناس اللي ممكن إنه نستضيفهم. وبارك الله فيكم ست سمر.
يعطيك العافية ست ثريا، ويعطي للجميع الحضور، وشكرا لهم. المنتدى بيكون حلو بحضور المعلمين.